Hello. Today we're going to be talking about high school resumes and how you can use them. We're going to go through the different elements of a resume, what they're useful for, especially if this is your first resume, if you haven't had one before because you're applying for your first job, or maybe you've had a job but it didn't require a resume for your application. We'll also talk about the different skills that you include in a resume, as well as look at an example, because this is something that you are going to potentially want to use on your college applications, for scholarship applications, and again, for jobs. So let's get started. So writing a resume in high school can seem a little bit overwhelming, especially if you've never done it before. If you haven't ever had a job or a formal work experience, then you might be at a loss for what you're supposed to include. So let's look at some of the elements of what you want to include. The good news is that even if you're writing your first resume, chances are you have actual work experience. It just might not be presented in your mind as, I had a formal job. So if you have done something like babysitting, lawn mowing, volunteering in a consistent manner, you can show that you have valuable work skills. This is what an employer wants to see. They don't expect a high school student to necessarily have held a job before. But what they want to know is that you're responsible, you're organized, you're going to show up on time, you're going to do your job well. That's what they're looking for. And so other types of experiences can demonstrate all of that. And just remember that because even if you have not had a job like the one you're applying for, doesn't mean that you don't already have the skills that you need to succeed at it. So let's talk about that some more. So what do you include in your resume? So informal work experience and activities. What we mean by that is if you have had formal work experience, like you had a job where you filled out paperwork and they took down your social security number and you got a check or a direct deposit or whatever it may be, that obviously goes on your resume. But if you've done informal work, like we mentioned before, babysitting, pet sitting, lawn mowing, shoveling snow, something like that, if you've done anything that earned money, then that's something that can go in there as well, even if you didn't collect a regular paycheck. Since most high school students haven't held lots of jobs, some of you may have, but some of you may not, it's important to draw upon all aspects of your life that show you have the character and the work ethic to succeed at a job. So one thing that you can do in lieu of, or in addition to work experience, is to list leadership roles. So if you have demonstrated leadership either in a club at school or on a sports team, or if you maybe helped organize an after-school activity like volunteering somewhere, those are the types of things that you can list as a leadership role in a bulleted list of responsibilities and accomplishments. And we'll look at an example of this in a moment. But what you're doing there is you're saying, no, I haven't held a job like the one you're looking for, but I have done things that would make me a good employee for you. So that's what they want to see with that. You also can promote your attitude and performance. Having a good attitude and willingness to learn is one of the most important things about having a job. Again, employers are not going to expect you to have lots of experience. If you have perfect or near perfect attendance at school, that's going to show that you will show up to work. If you have been recommended by a teacher or a counselor, and they have mentioned that you have a really good attitude about taking on challenges, that's the kind of thing that they want to see as well. So you can promote yourself through having a positive attitude and a good performance history. You also want to mention your achievements. Employers look for staff who have a history of making positive contributions to whatever environment they're in. So look at your experiences and ask yourself if there are achievements in either schoolwork or clubs or sports, a different work environment, that can show that you would be a good employee. Also, use verbs like enhanced, reorganized, increased, improved, initiated, upgraded, expanded. Show that you made a contribution. So not just I worked at this place, but while I was there, I helped reorganize the stockroom. I helped initiate a new policy to get more kids to come into our store, or whatever it may be. Include any challenging advanced academic projects that you've done. So if you've done something that shows you had to think outside the box, you had to do some research, you had to do more than what was basically required for the assignment, that shows that you are intelligent and you're a hard worker, and that's also the type of qualities that an employer wants to see. So tips for writing a high school resume. So we're going to look at some elements of the resume itself. So first, before you get going, before you even start using, say, a resume builder, and they exist in Word, you can get a template off of the internet. But what would be a really good thing to do is to start with a quick list or outline of all possible experiences that you've had, paid and unpaid, that you might want to include in your resume. So you can play with it a little bit before you're confined to the template of the resume document. Think of it as a brainstorming step. Try to jot down as much as you possibly can. You'll probably eliminate some stuff, but think really broadly. Like, do you have those informal jobs like babysitting or snow shoveling? Did you help, initiate a new activity or fundraiser at school? Those sorts of things. You want to think about all of the things that you've done in your high school career or even in middle school, if you were doing that kind of stuff then, that could potentially make it onto your resume. You want to include your skills. It's always a good idea to have a skills section, and that it needs to specifically relate to the jobs for which you're applying. What that means is that you might have multiple versions of your resume. So you might, every time you apply for a new job, tweak it a little bit so that you can include different experiences as they relate to the job you're applying for. You don't want to just continue on and on and on so your resume ends up being 10 pages long. A resume should never be that long. But what you want to do is you want to show that you understand what's being asked in the job and that you have the skills that are appropriate for it. So also you want to use action words. So active language to describe your experiences portrays a dynamic way of showing off who you are. Start with phrases in your descriptions with action words like organized, led, calculated, taught, served, trained, tutored, wrote, researched, and inventoried, created, designed, drafted, edited, that sort of thing. So you want to have words that are showing that you did something. So I taught a Bible study class. I inventoried the art closet in the art department at my high school. I designed the poster for our fundraiser, that kind of thing. You want to have it be action oriented. A resume, like I mentioned just a moment ago, should be short, but it should also include all the necessary information. Your resume doesn't need to be longer than a page. And honestly, I think it would be kind of inappropriate for a high school student, unless there's a very extreme example, to have a resume longer than a page. It'll look like you're trying to pad it if you do that. You have to include certain things, like you'll have your contact information and whatever experiences you've had. But there's going to be other things that are a bit more objective, like a career summary, the things that are going to be more subjective, like having an objective or career summary, say what your life goals are or what you aspire to study in school when you go to college. That's all fine if there's room. But if you have lots of experiences, then you might not want to put too many of the additional elements into your resume, because it otherwise might seem a little excessive. So through your resume, you're basically giving them a snapshot of you. It's telling a story of who you are. So what you want to do is you connect your experience and skills with the qualifications for the role. So you're saying, this is who I am, this is what I've done, and this is why I am a good candidate for your job. So for example, if you're applying for a cashier position at a store, but you have not ever been a cashier before, what you could do is talk about other experiences you've had that would lend themselves to customer service. So if you're going to be a cashier, then obviously there's going to be some math involved. So you could talk about having good math skills. You could talk about having a good work ethic. You could talk about being a member of a team. You could talk about being a people person and how you presumably would be interacting with lots of people in the public and, demonstrate your bubbly personality that way. Well, you want to make sure that you always read the job description and match your experience with their requirements. So again, that's where it might be a situation where you have multiple resumes that you're working from. Or, I mean, we're not talking about radically different documents, but little tweaks in the way that you have created it so that you can emphasize certain skill sets for certain types of jobs. You can always just have a single document that you adjust as needed. So you've got the basics there, but then you talk about different skills, you pull them out, or you emphasize different experiences based on the job you're applying for. As with anything that someone else in a position to hire or accept or judge you is in, you need to proofread your draft of the document. You should probably have other people look at it, make sure that it looks good, that you don't have any grammatical errors, that you haven't made any punctuation mistakes. You want to review your draft very carefully before finalizing the document. And then again, have a counselor, parent, teacher, someone like Tracy or me look at it for you and make sure that it is the best possible representation of you. And then you're going to print multiple copies of it. Some jobs might accept online applications, but it's still going to probably be necessary to have physical copies. So you'll want to print it and have it on hand. And then when you're applying for jobs, let's say it's spring semester next year and you're going to be applying for a job for that summer, presuming that, you know, COVID and everything is gone at that point. So you're applying for a job and you're going to go from physical storefront to storefront to hand out copies of your application or of your resume along with the application. So you need to have some copies ready to go. So here is a template of what your resume might look like. This is pretty bare bones. It's not, you know, it doesn't have lots of bells and whistles, but it has the major information you need there. So you have Steven Student, that's a convenient name. And he lives at 123 Forest Street in Charleston, West Virginia, with the address. You've got his cell phone number and email address. Okay, great. So it starts with qualifications. It says highly focused and responsible high school student, guaranteed to contribute strongly within a customer service role, requiring enthusiasm, charismatic communication skills, and an exemplary work ethic. And then he has some qualities that he possesses in terms of communications, teamwork, again, mathematics. So we talked about that before. He's applying to be a cashier. So he talks about his math grades, technical proficiency, that he can use various types of software. Great. So those are qualifications. And they are specific to the job he's applying for. They're also general enough that they could be used for other types of jobs, but they'll work in this situation as well. Education. So he has here, he goes to George Washington High School in Charleston, West Virginia, has his GPA, then has some highlights. So honor roll, National Honor Society, co-captain of the boys swim team, debate team, math club, student math mentor. Great. Experience highlights. So by putting it in that sort of framework, it suggests that this isn't everything, but I'm just going to give you a glimpse so I can keep it to a page what I've done. So he had Steve's lawn care service. I'm assuming that's him. Maybe it's his dad. He was a gardener from 2017 to present, and then talks about the job in a sentence or two. And then has another note about it. Built a lasting clientele through word of mouth referrals from satisfied customers. So he has done the work for a while. He has been appreciated for that work, and people even wanted to recommend him. Then he also has a volunteer experience working for Habitat for Humanity, and talks about how he was part of that. And then he conceptualized and coordinated a fundraising Christmas bazaar that raised over $5,000 for the organization. This gives us a really great glimpse of him. I think that looking at this, you know that he is organized, he is responsible, he has taken initiative, he's a good student, he's involved in his community, he has the skills necessary for the job. This is a very good example of a resume. So my guess is that some of this will be relevant to your own experiences and some of it won't. But what you want to do is just get started, and then you have the resume that you can use for adapting to a variety of different experiences. Okay, well, good luck. Let us know if we can help, and I look forward to seeing your resume. Good luck with the job hunt.